Good evening, Traverse City, and welcome to Crime Adjacent Live. It's so good to finally be back in Traverse City. As listeners of the podcast know, we were here in 2024 for the case of the Michigan Night Stalker, which stretched from Traverse City to Petoskey and became one of the bizarrest, creepiest cases we have ever investigated. It's the subject of Season 8 of the show, so check it out if you're into weird dudes who break into cabins to rub feet. It's wild. And you'll have to forgive me, I think I picked up a cold in Milwaukee last week, so bear with me as I struggle through tonight. But for now, as always, listen closely, because everything I'm about to tell you, every detail, it all matters for solving this case. A murder live streamed to an audience of millions. This case begins on Thursday night, August 17th, 2024, in Burbank, California, in the apartment of Madison Park, one of YouTube's most popular live streamers and lifestyle influencers. On this particular night, Park, age 24, is doing exactly what she always does between 6 to 9 p.m., hosting a live stream for her millions of followers. She started, as she always does, with one of those get-ready-with-me face routines, including after-work wash and then new makeup and hair tips. People tuned in for her tips and freebie contests. She was like the cool big sister of the internet, like real Jen Hamilton vibes. Then, at 7 p.m., Park did what she always did. The reason everyone made sure they were at their phones and computers across the world at precisely 7 p.m. Pacific time. She grabbed a little brass bell, like the kind some fancy Victorian household might have to summon a team of butlers. And then she gave it a gentle little tinkle a few times in announcement. It was, finally, tea time. And then she did what has always become a hallmark of the show. She exposed all the secrets and industry gossip of the movie and TV industry. Whether you are a big famous movie star, an agent, an actor, or an up-and-coming actress or even youngster back in Ohio or Idaho, Park let you in on all the latest gossip and secrets and lies at the heart of this industry. It's what catapulted her to YouTube fame and glory and infamy in the first place back in 2021. She attracted legions of devoted followers who studied what to do and what not to do in Hollywood. But she also attracted a legion of enemies, people she publicly exposed over the years for bad behavior and worse. So people said later, afterward, that it probably shouldn't be a surprise what happened next. People said she, quote, ruined a few careers for exposing just horrible behavior, such as drugging and sexual assaults. Maybe one of these men wanted her dead. That's what people said, because at precisely 8:32 p.m., after the live stream turned to the latest reality TV show gossip, Park can be seen on video abruptly turning her head and pausing mid-sentence. YouTube has, of course, taken this video down by now, but you can find it online. I won't link to it anywhere. But it's important to this case. It's key evidence. Park looked to her right. She turned back to the camera. She asked her audience, "Did you hear that?" There's a pause. And then her eyes go wide. She raises her hand. A scream forms on her lips, and then the unthinkable happens, all before an audience of 23 million. Okay, profilers, let's dive straight into this case, the live stream killing of Madison Park. Live from Traverse City, I'm Chase Patrick, and this is Crime Adjacent. Madison Park was born 2 days after New Year's in the year 2000 to Grace and Daniel Park in Phoenix, Arizona. We knew, Grace Park told the Today Show in 2025, that she was going to be a star the moment she began to walk and speak. All she wanted to do was sing and dance. Indeed, Madison took ballet, tap, Irish dance, singing lessons, acting lessons, everything she could possibly do because she loved the stage and performing. By the time she was a freshman in high school, she was already the lead actress in high school and community productions of Grease, Wicked, and more. You can find some of these videos on YouTube. They're still there. Grace Park told the Today Show, "We have no idea where any of this came from. Daniel and I are accountants. We never even watched TV when she was younger. It was just something inside her. After high school, Madison made a move the family had been expecting since she was a toddler. She headed to Los Angeles as a freshman at the University of Southern California, where she majored in dramatic arts, the pathway to Hollywood connections. Madison gained a reputation in college as one of the hardest working students out there, attending class and auditions and local comedy troupes as opposed to partying with friends late into the night. She landed a few minor roles in shows like CSI or Law & Order, as waitress number 2 or Corpse. It was a start. Grace said she was learning, making all the connections she wanted to make. She really had a sense for how to make it. Bright, incredibly smart, beautiful, talented, the whole works. Madison could sing, dance, play 4 different musical instruments. 2 college friends tried endlessly for Madison to join their band. By 2020, her junior year in school, things were rolling. She had an agent, a few glimpses of bigger roles, auditions that were getting better and better. She was even thinking of dropping out of college to pursue acting full-time, which her parents absolutely forbade. And for good reason. They had heard stories of Hollywood gobbling up young actresses, and by Hollywood, they meant powerful, creepy men. Which is, in late 2020, exactly what happened. Like a lot of people who come to Los Angeles, Madison met the wrong man in 2020. She never said at the time what happened. But things quickly took a turn after this meeting, and those roles and auditions just seemed to dry up. Honestly, this reminds me so much of the stories of Bobby Calvin and Michelle Diaz from season 7 about the rest stop killer. They too had Hollywood dreams and then returned to Ridgewood after one of these very similar sounding horrible meetings. As for Madison, it was an incredibly difficult 2 years through college after this, and she told her parents that she was thinking of returning to Phoenix. Maybe she could switch to the stage, which she always loved in high school. A touring Broadway show seemed far more appealing than Los Angeles, she said. Anything, basically, to get away. But then, almost on a lark while in this deep depression and funk, almost like a giant FU to the entire industry, Park went live on YouTube one night and just vented about everything, about her experience in the industry, about things that happened to her, a sexual assault by a Hollywood agent named Max Peterson at one of those major agencies. She named him, she detailed everything. This was March 12th, 2021, exactly. You can find this clip on YouTube to this day. It has more than 650 million views and counting. This video did 2 important things. 1, it made Park a pariah. Agent Max Peterson was big at the time, and soon enough, instead of any charges actually filed against him or even an investigation, he managed to turn the entire industry against her. Roles, auditions, and agent, gone. But the second thing happened as well. This video and others that would quickly follow suddenly catapulted Park into one of the most famous, beloved YouTube lifestyle influencers in the universe, like of all time. If Hollywood blacklisted her for spilling its secrets and assaults and cover-ups, her fans loved her. In fact, the agent that fired her, Peter Baker, called her and said he'd reconsider if she recanted any of her allegations. You can tell how that conversation went, which Park shared the following day on her YouTube page. Peter Baker was actually fired for firing her in the first place. It was glorious. And all along, Park continued just to share everything. Everything she encountered, everything she heard, every tip and trick and warning against other creeps in the industry. Within a month, she had 20 million followers. Within a year, 100 million. She was a sensation, which felt weird at first. It wasn't why or how she wanted fame, but it was fame nonetheless. People stopped her on the street. She was mobbed in stores and coffee shops. Brands reached out for deals and ad campaigns. But this newfound fame also had an immediate downside. One viewer by the name of Theodore Moulton of Reno, Nevada, actually drove to campus to USC and stalked her at her campus apartment and followed her to class. When he was arrested for stalking, he said he was only following Madison's orders, which she had transmitted to him secretly during one of her live stream tea times. He was arrested and a restraining order was placed against him, which actually happened a second time. One man followed her from a coffee shop where she was mobbed and taking selfies with fans to her class on campus. This man, Edmund Campos, was also arrested. This all put Madison in a bind, because after college, she wasn't quite sure what to do. Should she move back in with her parents in Phoenix? She could live stream from anywhere, save all that money like her parents suggested, so when all this sudden fame dried up, she could retire with ease nonetheless. They were accountants, after all. They were thinking of her future. At this point, Madison had enough money to buy a place in Beverly Hills or Santa Monica or wherever she wanted. But Madison did something unexpected, and maybe strange or genius. I don't know. After graduating, she moved to a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Burbank, not far from the major movie studios. She wondered if all this YouTube fame and social media celebrity status might one day provide her a backdoor of sorts into the mainstream movie industry she had always dreamed of. And so she wanted to stay local, just in case. Plus, being so close to so many studios and all the people in them was the perfect pipeline for industry gossip. So Madison moved into the Iris Court apartment complex of 40 units on Iris Court in Burbank. It was not fancy. It looked almost like an old-school motel, really, like one of those L-shaped two-story complexes that had seen better days. Park told her parents, no one would expect it. A big star living here. She'd have anonymity. Plus, it would allow her to save reams of money. She was just like her parents. But this move, it would also be part of her downfall. Okay, let's get into exactly what happened that night. Like I said, it was a usual YouTube live stream broadcast on October 17th, 2024. Park did her usual get ready with me routine, shared tips and tricks. At 7 p.m., she did a tea time section warning people off a particular entertainment agency that had yet to fire a male agent for multiple domestic violence arrests. Footnote, he was fired the next day. And then at 8:30 p.m. that night, she started in on our usual watch reality TV with me bit. This time about Love Island, always a popular segment. And then, in front of a live audience of millions, Park can be seen suddenly looking to her right, towards the bedroom-bathroom area of her apartment, although viewers wouldn't know that. All they could see is that she suddenly turned her head, as if hearing a noise. Then she resumed, a little off maybe, like when you lose your train of thought. Then she rallied and continued. But it happened again. She must have heard something again because she again turns to the right, to the bathroom, pauses, and peers around. She returns her gaze to the camera and asks, "Did you hear that?" These were her last words. Because she flinches, abruptly turns to her right again. Her eyes go wide. She raises her hands as if in defense. She opens her mouth to scream. But she never gets the chance. Because someone shot Madison Park 2 times at exactly 8:32 p.m. in front of a horrified, helpless audience of millions. One shot was to her head, and Madison immediately slumps downward, as if crumpling on top of herself. There's a bonk as her body hits the floor. The camera remains staring directly ahead where her body used to be. Then there's suddenly an arm in frame, covered in long black waffle knit shirt of some type. Whoever owns this arm also has black latex gloves on. And a gun. The gun aims downward and fires once. This bullet strikes Madison in the chest. There are then 9 more shots, all connecting with Madison's head and chest, and all captured live on camera, just an arm firing a 9mm gun. The arm retracts. There is the sound of hurried, heavy footsteps, and then silence. The camera would continue rolling for 17 more minutes as neighbors pound on the door, having heard the gunshots. Then, as police finally arrive and bust down the door, several officers can be seen and heard on camera, clearly saying there was no need to call an ambulance. Madison was dead. At 8:49 p.m., one of these officers sees the camera setup, sees that it's recording everything, and this officer finally cuts the feed. That's the end of the public-facing part of this video. But arriving detectives now had a job behind the scenes, figuring out who would do this and why. And this was the job of Detective Elena Navarro with the Burbank Police Department. Navarro was a veteran homicide investigator who was called to the scene straight away by Chief of Police Allison Lignetti herself. The video, the murder, this became international news straight away. Media, cops, the FBI, everyone flooded to the apartment on Iris Court that night. Fans set up vigils with flowers and brass tea time bells along the sidewalk. Navarro told the Today Show, "That was the hardest part, just trying to quiet the noise and begin to piece together what happened with what little we actually had." The Today Show reporter actually asked her to clarify, "What little? The murder was captured on video. Isn't that a lot?" And Navarro said, "Well, yes and no." On the one hand, this was obviously a murder. 11 shots to the body captured on video. There was no guessing exactly what happened and where it happened. On the other hand, all they had in terms of suspects was this: a noise Madison heard from her right, then another noise, then what appears to be a man. We don't know for certain. We never actually see a body or a face. All we see is an extended arm fully covered in a black shirt and a black latex glove. It looks like a larger, beefier arm, but that doesn't mean it has to be a man. And that's it. Just an anonymous arm, an anonymous hand, and an anonymous gun, all on the side of this video frame. So to quiet the noise that night, Navarro actually kicked everyone out of Madison's apartment and did what she normally does. She walked around, taking in the scene and talking to herself all the while. And what she found was interesting. One, the video setup. It was like a soundstage that dominated the apartment. It was white marble and luxe and had incredible lighting and mirrors and soft textures interlaced throughout. It looked like a living room of a multi-million-dollar house or hotel. In reality, it was all a facade. Peel away this video backdrop, and Madison's apartment looked like all the others in this Iris Court place. An okay kitchen, an okay bedroom, a little messy, clothes on the floor, dirty dishes in the sink, box after box of freebie and giveaway items and Amazon parcels. Madison was clearly a busy woman who devoted her time and energies to her videos, not her house. And two, this became key. Navarro actually stood that night in the exact place Madison was filming. If Navarro looked to her left from this location in the living room, she would see the front door just off camera. Cops had to bust it down. It was locked tight that night with 2 bolts and a chain. But if she looked to her right, just like Madison did on the video, she'd see the bedroom and the bathroom door. If this was the direction Madison was looking when she heard the noises and saw the intruder this night, what does that tell us? I know you've glommed onto this idea by now. The intruder came from the bedroom or bathroom, not the front door. Was the intruder there all along? Did she hide and waiting for the video to start? What noise did Madison turn to investigate? That was where Navarro headed next. She said she scoured the bedroom and saw no signs of a physical disturbance. The bedroom window was locked tight, with a rod inserted into the sill to prevent any break-ins. Smart. The bathroom window was smaller, much smaller, and it didn't have a rod. But you'd have to be slim and agile to fit in. Not impossible, but also a tight squeeze. And the only access to this window from the outside was down an alleyway that ran behind all the apartments, like a narrow channel all the residents could use to bring their garbage down to the bins when they needed. From all of this, Navarro couldn't really tell whether the intruder broke in right before the murder or was there in waiting, like in the shower or under the bed. That honestly creeps me out. The only weird thing she found in terms of evidence, no prints, no DNA, nothing, was a scrape of gold paint on the outside of the bathroom window, a scrape inconsistent with the other windows and the beige, lifeless look of the rest of the apartment complex. Navarro actually had this paint noted into evidence and checked just to be safe, and she discovered it was called Off-Broadway, an antique gold, and was used on movie sets to help create an old antique vibe for old houses and motels, like cigarette smoke, wear and tear, that type of thing. Was it related? Who knows? It was the only thing she had, because whoever had done this left nothing behind. So, of course, with no physical evidence, Navarro immediately focused on Madison's past and who might want to do this. The detective didn't find any past boyfriends or nothing serious, like a date or two maybe. And this is backed up by all her YouTube videos in which she dishes on how difficult it is to find a man who wasn't some crazy red-pilled dude who would be embarrassed by a young woman who had her own business and raked in the dough. This was a recurring theme throughout the videos, like, ladies, don't settle for nonsense. And she apparently lived this in real life, just as she did on her videos, because her friends and family said they couldn't think of one serious boyfriend. But they could think of stalkers. Those came to mind first of all. There was Theodore Moulton of Reno, Nevada, who was arrested for following her around class after claiming she had used YouTube to send him secret messages. Well, it turns out Theodore Moulton was actually in Los Angeles this day in 2024. Yes, there was still a restraining order against him, but that didn't stop him from moving to Burbank and working in Twiggy's coffee shop about 5 blocks away from Ira's court. There's no actual way to know if Madison knew this or not. She never said she knew, either to her friends or family or to her fans on YouTube. But it's entirely possible she saw Theodore frequently, as Madison was known to frequent Twiggy's. Detective Navarro actually interviewed him, and his alibi was suspect. Moulton said he was at home that night, in sort of a crappy, rundown one-bedroom apartment very much like Madison's, but in Silver Lake. And he didn't murder her, heavens no. In fact, he watched the murder play out like everyone else. On his phone, he actually called in sick the next day because he was too distraught, he said. Was there any proof he was at home? No. Did he visit Madison's apartment that day? After work on the way home, maybe? No. Navarro made a note to keep him on the list and to do a little more digging into his background. She didn't write him off, it's just that there were others to look at. Too many others. Like the next stalker, Edmund Campos, who was arrested a few years prior for following her to class. Campos, however, was in Maine on a family vacation on the day of her murder. He'd gotten married, was doing fine, had managed to avoid social media altogether since his arrest, and really turned his life around. So Navarro kept digging and found that there was more than just stalkers to worry about. Remember, Madison dished the latest industry gossip all over town, and these guys, they had a lot to lose. Like Max Peterson, the Hollywood entertainment agent who Madison says sexually assaulted her as she tried to make it as an actress years and years ago. There were no charges in that case, not even an investigation, just the accusations made in the initial YouTube video back in 2021, the one that catapulted Madison to fame in the first place. Remember, immediately after this video, Madison briefly became a pariah, and nothing happened to Peterson. Until, that is, Madison's popularity began to grow, and people around the country began to demand that Max Peterson be fired. Or else, like, how dare you keep the guy who messed with my big sister? So while initially nothing happened to Peterson, he was eventually fired. Client after client ditched him, and it simply became untenable for him to stay at the agency. And besides all that, Navarro found he is facing 1 count of sexual abuse in an unrelated case and has since moved to Silver Lake as well, where he works as a waiter at a non-hip mom-and-pop type dive place. Is that enough of a motive? From Hollywood power and celebrity and money to losing it all and becoming a possible murderer? Well, yes, definitely, according to Navarro. Peterson was high on the suspect list, but for a very important reason. A very important reason. Because police interviewed all of Madison's neighbors to see if they heard or saw anything out of the ordinary, and the guy across the hall from Madison, Daniel Cross, said he actually had seen something earlier in the day. It stood out. So let me back up to make sure I'm getting all this right. The Ira's Court apartments are set up like one of those roadside motels. There's a parking lot in front, a row of apartments on the bottom, and then a row of apartments on top of these. There's stairs on both ends, and the doors to these apartments are basically side by side. Remember, on the back side of this complex, there's a sealed pathway for residents to use for garbage or a fire escape route. But you can't see that from the parking lot. It's for residents only. Well, Daniel Cross said he was returning from his job at the Hollywood Pantages Theater, where they were getting ready for a Broadway touring run of Hamilton. He was a set designer there, and he saw a guy come down the stairs as Cross was going up. He thought it might be a delivery guy at first because he hadn't seen this man before, and he stood out. It was a hot day, and this man was dressed in all black, with a black mask covering his face, like a medical COVID-type mask, not a ski mask. But Cross didn't think much of it at the time because he was tired and there were packages at his door and Madison's door, and the guy left. No big deal, probably just a delivery. But when Navarro showed Cross a picture of the former agent, Max Peterson, Cross said, maybe. He was wearing a mask, so it's hard to tell. But the body type fit, in the eyes maybe, it looked like a possibility. That could have been Max Peterson at the apartment. So Navarro really dug into Peterson and saw that just like stalker Theodore Moulton, Peterson didn't have much of an alibi, or really any alibi. He said he was working that day, but his boss at the diner said otherwise. Oh, Peterson said, that day. Oh no, I was hiking with a friend in the Hollywood Hills. Who? Oh, I can't remember. Maybe that was a different day. Well, what were you doing at night at 8:30? Again, he said he was working, but there was nothing to back this up. Then, suddenly, like a switch had been thrown, Peterson clammed up. Feeling the heat, he refused to speak any further with Navarro. And without any actual evidence linking him to this crime, she couldn't do much else. She tried to get a warrant to look for the gun or clothes based on neighbor Cross's description, but that was denied. So all she could really do eventually, after her initial leads just sort of floated away and no one person could be tied to this crime scene or the murder in any real way, was wait and wait and wait. The autopsy came back in the meantime. No real surprises there. Madison was murdered with a handgun, pretty obvious given millions of people saw it happen in real time. All the crime scene testing came back, and just as expected. No prints, no DNA, no blood. From the video, she didn't expect much. The killer wore gloves, concealed himself well, moved fast and quick, and was gone in a flash afterwards. But one thing did come back from all that testing, that weird smear of gold paint Navarro had seen outside the bathroom window. It was indeed paint, and it was indeed, just as she suspected, out of the ordinary for the building. It was in fact out of ordinary for most buildings. It was a brand of paint called Roscoe, antique gold in particular. Navarro called around a few paint stores to inquire who might use this type of paint. She was thinking carpenters maybe, or home painters. This was a blue-collar apartment, and maybe one of these workers just smeared it along the wall. Maybe it was something, maybe it was nothing. The paint store clerk, however, said this was special paint. It was used almost exclusively for movie sets because it worked best with the lighting and camera angles. It was an industry material for an industry town, and colors like antique gold were often used to help create an aura of old feeling on sets, like a tired motel room or house, or perhaps even cigarette stains in the air. Navarro told the Today Show this was it. This was the big aha moment when those tests came back. How so? In performing her victimology on Madison, Navarro said she was focused mostly on former stalkers and those in the industry who might want to do her harm. She talked to family, friends, neighbors, everyone who had talked to her about Madison. But one particular discussion stood out. Remember Madison's neighbor across the hall, Daniel Cross, the set designer who said he saw a man coming out of the apartment earlier in the day? A man who looked strikingly familiar to Max Peterson, the former agent? Navarro said it wasn't the agent she was interested in. It was Daniel Cross. It all came together, Navarro said, explaining her line of thinking to the Today Show. Who would have access to this private walkway where residents take their trash out? Who would even know this tiny alleyway was there? It had to be a local, a resident, but the paint, that was the big tell. Daniel Cross mentioned that he was a set designer at work that day on the production of Hamilton. We actually went to the set at the theater and found, in the materials closet, a fresh can of Roscoe off-Broadway antique gold, the exact color and brand left behind at the window. Who else connected to this case would have access to such a specific color and brand of paint? Navarro said it was enough for a search warrant. And when officers performed the search on Daniel's apartment, they discovered not just flecks of the same paint on his clothes and in the washer and dryer. They also discovered the same bullets that were used to murder Madison. During his interrogation, Daniel Cross stuck to his story that he saw a man coming down the stairs. But he admitted that he was jealous and enraged that day when he saw Max Peterson leave the apartment building. He didn't know at the time that this person also wanted to cause Madison harm. Instead, what he saw was another love interest wooing Madison, when Daniel believed he and the popular streamer had formed a connection in all their moments crossing paths around the apartment. He had asked her out for coffee or dinner a few times, which she always declined, but Daniel hoped she might change her mind one day. In fact, he asked her out again that morning, and she told him in no uncertain terms that she did not want a relationship with him or anyone. So when he saw another man leaving her apartment that day, this was, apparently, enough. He said he needed to, quote, punish Madison for being too good for him, a set designer who had even given her unsolicited advice on creating her own facade backdrop for videos. Is this rational? Does it make sense in any way? No, of course not. As Navarro told the Today Show, this was yet one more example of a man who for some reason decided murder was an appropriate response. We see it every day, unfortunately. Navarro said the noise Madison heard was most likely Cross opening the bathroom window after gaining access to it via this back alley pathway for residents. She must have heard something, so Madison turned her head. This was Cross sneaking in, given only residents had access to this path. But the thing is, had he not left that tiny smudge of specialty gold paint behind, he might have actually gotten away with it, despite this murder being live streamed to millions across the globe. In the end, Cross accepted a plea deal for second-degree murder to avoid life in prison on a first-degree murder charge, and he is scheduled to be eligible for parole in 2035. In the aftermath of this murder, Madison Park's parents have used their daughter's wealth to establish a foundation for young actresses at USC, a fund to pay bills for auditions and acting classes and whatever they need to make it in Hollywood, just like Madison dreamed and actually accomplished herself. They call this fund the Tea Time Fund. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, Traverse City. Apologies for my voice. I hope it improves next week when I see you in Columbus with another case you simply will not believe. Until next time, I'm Chase Patrick, and this is Crime Adjacent.